Greetings, my fecund friends, meaning those persons marked by intellectual curiosity and productivity. Let's begin our lesson with another ridiculous, albeit amusing, overuse of uncommon words.
The polysyllabic profundity proverb.
Revolving lithic conglomerates accumulate no congeries of viridescent lycopods. Once more, revolving lithic conglomerates accumulate no congeries of viridescent lycopods. Translation: a rolling stone gathers no moss. That might have been easier to decipher had you known that lithic conglomerates are rocks. Congeries refer to aggregations or agglomerations. Viridescent means green. Lycopods are mosses. Now you do.
The distinguished dozen. Three Latin invaders.
Super, S-U-P-E-R, or sur, S-U-R, meaning above, as in supersede, superfluous, surpass, and surveillance. Super or sur. Dis, meaning apart, as in disconcert, disrespect, disapprove. Dis. Re, R-E, meaning retro or back, as in requisite, retrospect, renew. Re.
Three little words.
Ken, K-E-N, means perception, understanding, recognition, as in that subject is within my ken. Ken. Yen, desire, yearn, crave, as in a yen for learning. Yen. Zen, meaning a meditative practice, as in a contemplation of the meaning of life and the universe. Zen. He seems calmer since he began studying Zen.
Three Greek gifts.
Meta, M-E-T-A, involving change, beyond, transcending, as in metacognition or metamorphosis. Meta. Auto, self, as in automobile, automatic, auto. Astra, A-S-T-R, star, as in disaster, that's a contrary star, or astrology, astra.
Three purloined foreign language expressions.
Sine qua non, meaning something absolutely essential, S-I-N-E-Q-U-A-N-O-N, sine qua non. Status quo, S-T-A-T-U-S, Q-U-O, meaning the existing condition or situation, status quo. Tout de suite, meaning immediately, right away, tout de suite.
The Lollapalooza.
Sapid, S-A-P-I-D. Kind of small for a Lollapalooza, isn't it? It's a rather homely word, too, but it expresses a powerful and charming idea. Sapid means pleasant to the mind, engaging, as in Henry David Thoreau's classic Walden is deeply inspiring and wonderfully sapid to any thoughtful reader. And in sapid's defense, may I point out that it is lovelier than the equally appropriate word gash, G-A-S-H, meaning knowing, shrewd, witty, or sharp. But perhaps a second Lollapalooza is called for in this lesson, a more appealing word, a longer word, a fancier word, maybe one that relates to the correlative, that is, reciprocally related, part of this lesson, namely, action words. How's this? Puissant. Puissant. Puissant, which means mighty, powerful, and potent. As in, Nancy is a puissant learner in her chosen field of astrology. What a great word, puissant. Let's turn our attention now to a subject called metacognition, or learning to learn. Learning to learn is an analysis and description of metacognition, or thinking about thinking, which was discovered and named by Edward Robinson, one of America's first and best psychologists, qua learning theorists. Please listen attentively now to my take on the subject, and then to an excerpt of Ed Robinson's treatise on learning to learn. Give your ear, that is, your full concentration, both to our messages and to the words we use to convey those messages. We should first consider a seminal question pondered by all teachers and all learners. How do people learn? What makes a subject easy or hard for a given individual? What makes us remember? What makes us forget? We need to know the answers to questions such as these, as individuals and as a species. What is the key or set of keys to learning? Such questions have intrigued and fascinated learning theorists, psychologists and psychiatrists, neurologists and biologists, teachers and education researchers since ancient times. Finding the answers is an enormous undertaking, at least in part because there are so many variables, so many things that shift and change and that alter with our mental age or with a given presentation or teaching style or method. To know everything about learning may not be possible until we unlock the mysteries of the human brain, the most complex organism we've ever studied. There are, however, many tried and true learning habits which help us in our search for better ways to teach and better ways to learn. These strategies and practices seem to be effective regardless of subject matter, delivery system, or individual learning differences. Of all the things we do know about long-term learning, one of the most efficient and effective practices might be summed up in the word vernacular, or everyday speech, by saying, use it or lose it. A more formal rendering might be, if you do not in some way apply the things you learn, those things will quickly fade from your immediate memory. Either way you express it, one fact is clear: you must practice to learn, but you must learn how to practice. By way of example, I have for years watched preseason golfers at the range practice their slice and duck hook until they could hit the ball so far out of play that they weren't hitting into the rough anymore. They were in an adjacent fairway. Obviously, we have to practice the right and correct things. Paul Sheely spoke in this vein in our first lesson when he discussed the building of dendrites, or neural connections, by constant and varied use of our brains. It might be helpful to think of practice as consisting of 3 steps. 1. This is the sine qua non, the absolutely essential factor of learning. Decide why you need or want to learn whatever skill or subject you are attempting. Get some focus for your thinking. 2. As far as it's possible, receive the knowledge being presented in the best situation for you personally. It can be a large class setting, a small group setting, or a personal learning setting, such as we're engaged in here. It's worth mentioning that one of the most appealing aspects of the personal learning course is the radical and, for many, rewarding departure from the status quo of the lecture hall. 3. Find a way to use what you learn tout de suite, that is, as soon as possible. It's a major part of mastery learning, and it works. It works for all persons, in any subject, at any stage of our lives. As they say, just do it. Although using knowledge once or even twice may not always result in high proficiency at the task or problem, it will ensure long-term retention and a higher than usual proficiency, what we are here calling mastery learning. Because this aspect of learning is so crucial and so significant, I'd like to share with you at this time a few words from the American Grand Master of Learning Theory, Dr. Ed Robinson. In one of his famous books, he discusses metacognition, or learning to learn. I have here excerpted a 4.5-minute section of his insightful investigation of this topic, which I will now share with you. Here is his essay, Learning to Learn by Professor Edward S. Robinson. The old saw says that practice makes perfect, and certainly perfection is unattainable in any of the complex forms of human activity without practice. Mere practice, however, is not enough. There are circumstances when much practice will produce either very little learning or none at all. As an example, a person may drive an automobile along a street day after day for years without learning the order of the houses or all the details of their color and shape. Many things along this route one does learn, yet many others one does not learn, even though one is often conscious of them. Of course, if one were told that he had to pass an examination of these familiar scenes, his attitude in passing them would undergo a decisive change. He would now look upon the places that he passed in the attitude of actively intending to remember them. The distinction is between what psychologists call incidental learning on the one hand and intentional learning on the other hand. The difference in effectiveness of these two types of learning has been brought out by many experiments. Learning is frequently studied by means of an instrument known as the stylus maze, a labyrinth cut as a groove in a metal sheet. The subject, who is blindfolded, moves the stylus or pointed tool along through the grooves until he or she is able to find the shortest route. One researcher put 2 groups of subjects through such a task. The members of one group were told that they were to learn the pattern. Those in the other group were instructed to run the maze, but they were not told to learn its pattern. Those who had the conscious intent to learn did learn, and in about 1/5 the practice required by those without intent. Some of the latter never did learn the maze. A number of experiments have brought out the same facts for memorization. William McDougall and May Smith, his collaborator, once found that the reading with no intent to learn of a list of meaningless syllables would produce learning only after 11 times as many trials as would be required if the intent to learn were consciously present. With meaningful syllables, that is, words, the results were even more impressive. The presence of the intent to learn, then, is a prime requisite, that is, a requirement for effective learning. In much of our reading, typewriting or word processing, tennis playing or listening, we are injudicious in this regard. We put far too much faith in sheer repetition and fail to keep in mind the fact that we're trying to improve our knowledge or skill. Any kind of motivation that keeps us conscious that we are seeking to increase our efficiency is likely to be helpful. Competition, which encourages us to compare our own performance with that of others, is an especially good device for establishing and maintaining a strong intention to learn, because in such a situation we are A, focused, and B, constantly reminded of the specific task at hand. It needs saying, though, that competition may also be internal and singular, as is the case with quizzes and tests, wherein you are for the most part competing with yourself. Immediately following reading or listening, there is typically a swift disintegration of a considerable part of what has been learned. The application of this principle is simple. If one hears an isolated fact like a name, or a complex set of facts like an essay, the time to reinforce the first impression and to cut off the normal process of rapid disintegration is as soon as possible after the impressions. There are 2 important methods of reinforcement. In the case of material that has been read or listened to, we may simply turn back to the printed pages and read them over again or listen again to the recording. Or we may attempt, by our own efforts, to recall what we have read or heard. In most instances, the latter is by far the most effective procedure. It may be well to check the veracity of one's recall by referring to the primary source, but this should be done only after the effort to recall has been made. There you have it, the truth about learning to learn from the person who coined the phrase. Now for a quick quiz of the words used in this lesson context. Number 1, puissant. Again, Puissant. Puissant means A, mighty, B, an insignificant person, C, a crybaby. Puissant means mighty, insignificant, or crybaby. Puissant means mighty. Number 2, Metacognition means thinking about what? Metacognition means thinking about thinking. And 3, a requisite, requisite, is A, a request, B, a necessity, C, a type of eulogy. A requisite is a request, a necessity, a eulogy. A requisite is a necessity. Number 4, injudicious, injudicious. Injudicious means A, against the law, B, judge-like, or C, unwise. Injudicious means against the law, judge-like, or unwise. Injudicious means unwise. 5, veracity, veracity. Veracity means A, correct or true, B, similarity, C, unquestionable. Veracity means correct or true, similarity, or unquestionable. Veracity means correct or true. 6, slices and duck hooks are bad food, bad golf shots, or bad news. Slices and duck hooks are A, bad food, B, bad golf shots, C, bad news. Well, slices and duck hooks are bad golf shots. 7, a collaborator, collaborator, a collaborator is A, a communist, B, a painter, C, a co-worker in an intellectual effort. A collaborator is a communist, a painter, or a co-worker. A collaborator is a co-worker in an intellectual effort. 8, incidental, incidental, means a tooth problem, minor concomitant, or unintentional. Incidental means A, a tooth problem, B, minor concomitant, C, unintentional. Incidental means B, a minor concomitant. 9, a labyrinth, labyrintth. A labyrinth is A, a quagmire, B, a trap, C, a maze. A labyrinth is a quagmire, a trap, or a maze. A labyrinth is a maze. 10, sapid, sapid, means A, engaging, B, brittle, C, bitter. 10, sapid means engaging, brittle, or bitter. Sapid means engaging. First, let me tell you that the good folk at Learning Strategies Corporation are dedicated to developing means and ways to provide alternative and extra learning experiences for their clients. Each lesson in this personal learning course includes one or more active use applications of the words and terms you've learned. And your playbook is a rich source of ideas and activities for mastery learning. So in the spirit of permanent learning, let's put your active recall to the test. See how well you listened to Dr. Robinson's ideas by choosing the best answer to 10 questions. If you want to listen to the essay once more before taking the quiz, please do so now. Let's try a few mastery learning exercises. Learning to learn, immediate recall, quick quiz. Number 1. The old saw or saying used in the opening sentence was, a stitch in time saves 9, or practice makes perfect. Practice makes perfect. 2. Sort of learning something as a result of unfocused repetition is called incidental learning or accidental learning. It's incidental learning. Accidental learning, by the way, is called serendipity. 3. Long-term learning of something on purpose is called practice learning or intentional learning. Long-term learning is called intentional learning. 4. The name of the instrument used to study learning is the stylus maze or maze. It's the stylus maze. 5. Those subjects who learn the maze with conscious intent did so in what fraction of time faster than the incidental learners? Half or 1/5? Let me repeat that. Those subjects who learned the maze with conscious intent did so in what fraction of time faster than the incidental learners? 1/5. 6. In McDougall and Smith's experiments with learning a list of meaningless syllables, the incidental learner needed how many more trials than the intentional learners? 11 or 4? They needed 11 more trials. 7. The prime requisite for effective learning is word-for-word reading or intent to learn. The prime requisite is the intent to learn. 8. An especially good device for establishing and maintaining a strong intention to learn was said to be competition or contemplation. It was competition. Number 9. Which learning requires earlier and more frequent rehearsals? Muscular habits or ideational habits? Ideational habits. Number 10. The two methods of reinforcement are active recall and redoing a lesson, or learning to learn and careful listening. The two methods of reinforcement are active recall and redoing a lesson. Our extra credit question: many persons who give up on a class or course of study are put into discouragement because their progress was impeded by poorly written materials or no clear conception of what they want to learn. Many persons who give up on a class or course of study are put into discouragement because their progress was impeded by poorly written materials or no clear conception of what they want to learn. Very much no clear conception of what they want to learn. No focus. I hope you did well in understanding and remembering the actions we took and the actions you need to take in order to develop a powerful and flexible vocabulary. A question: do actions speak louder than words when words are the subject and the goal? Get back to me if you can untangle that conundrum. Speaking of actions and vocabulary development, the following are 10 high-utility action words you need to know and be confident in using. The first word is abscond, A-B-S-C-O-N-D, to depart hastily and secretly, to flee, abscond. Cauterize, C-A-U-T-E-R-I-Z-E, to sear or close with a hot metal piece, cauterize. Deify or deify, D-E-I-F-Y, to make a god of, to exalt, deify or deify. Disconcert, D-I-S-C-O-N-C-E-R-T, to embarrass or confuse, to upset someone, disconcert. Elucidate, E-L-U-C-I-D-A-T-E, to make clear, to explain, elucidate. Marlene had clearly elucidated to Larry her shyness, and so she was disconcerted to the point of wishing she could cauterize his lips together for his pitiful attempt to deify her in public, and then quickly absconding when people began to laugh. Once more, in reverse order, definition first. To make clear, to explain, elucidate. To embarrass or confuse, to upset someone, disconcert. To make a god of, to exalt, deify. To sear or close with a hot metal piece, cauterize. To depart hastily and secretly, to flee, abscond. The second set of 5 action words are these. Expurgate, E-X-P-U-R-G-A-T-E, to remove objectionable material, to purge, expurgate. Finagle, F-I-N-A-G-L-E, to maneuver, to engineer, finagle. Procrastinate, P-R-O-C-R-A-S-T-I-N-A-T-E, to postpone action, to delay, procrastinate. Supersede, S-U-P-E-R-S-E-D-E. I'll repeat that because this is one of the most often misspelled words. People spell it C-E-D-E. The correct spelling for supersede is S-U-P-E-R-S-E-D-E. To take the place of, to supplant, supersede. Truncate, T-R-U-N-C-A-T-E. To shorten, to lop, truncate. The well-known procrastinator, Elmo Perkins, finagled an opportunity to expurgate certain unpleasant items from his annual review by truncating the criticisms and superseding them with effusive approbation. And now that 5, definitions first, say these with me. To shorten, to lop is to truncate. To take the place of, to supplant is to supersede. To postpone action, to delay, is to procrastinate. To maneuver, to engineer, is to finagle. To remove objectionable material, to purge, is to expurgate. There you have it. You now know more about how to learn than 90% of the people in the world, and you know or have reinforced your knowledge of 50 or more very useful and important words. For more reinforcement, check out the lesson in your playbook. It's a solid piece of useful information. Our last quick quiz in this chapter is a spell checker. Let's make this a whole brain exercise. Spelling these words in your mind will gently force you to create a mental picture of the words, which results in long-term memory. Abscond. A-B-S-C-O-N-D. Abscond. Elucidate. E-L-U-C-I-D-A-T-E. Elucidate. Finagle. Finagle is spelled F-I-N-A-G-L-E. Truncate. T-R-U-N-C-A-T-E. Truncate. And finally, expurgate. Expurgate is spelled E-X-P-U-R-G-A-T-E. The benediction is from Martin Luther. To not decide is to decide. I'm confident he meant that if we do not decide on a course of action, someone or something will decide it for us. I'll be back. Arrivederci.